Oh, how to survive in space. We're hanging out today. And here we are at Faraday Studio. We're sending a signal out from Cambridge, Mass today. And this is where Wizard 4 hangs out. And guess who I am? I'm Wizard 4. Hi, I'm Jake, Wizard 4. Everybody say hello, Jake.
Hello, Jake.
Oh, that's good. I can hear some kids from around the world. We've got people from around the world hanging out in our Google Hangout today. And I'm Wizard 4. I want to introduce everybody. And by the way, the reason we're here, I think everybody that's involved today viewed the Royal Lecture, the three-night lecture, Christmas lecture at the Royal Institution in London. I watched it and was just stunned. Kevin Fong, Kevin's going to join us here in a little bit, hopefully. And he presented scientists and astronauts, all sorts of people around the world describing what it's like to live in space and all the issues people have to deal with. So what we're doing today, we're doing a student follow-up. We're following up, and we've got kids watching all around the world, but we have 2 schools, and we'll introduce them shortly, that are fortunate enough to hook up to our Hangout today, and they're going to ask us some live questions, and hopefully we'll have some bright people to answer them, somebody brighter than me. So I introduce myself. I'm Jake. I'm Wizard 4. I have a title. Matter of fact, I got it in London at the Royal Institution, and I thought I just brought out today, zoom in on this, Jacob. I brought the staff so everybody could see it and go, ooh and ah. This has been passed down for about, I don't know, 150, almost 200 years, I guess. There's the 4 wizards, Faraday and Allier and Herbert, and then here's old Jake, and I'm Wizard 4. And we've passed this on, and I'm looking for Wizard 5. That's the reason why I'm here today. And so I thought it'd be kind of neat to see the staff.
Yeah.
Isn't that sweet?
That's awesome.
And that's it right there. I know Ollie at the Royal Institution, that silver right here at the bottom, that's Faraday silver. Peter Day gave me that to put on the staff. So a kind of crystal, one of these crystals belonged to Father Faraday at the Royal Institution. But I'll explain the staff later sometime. So anyway, let's move on. Thank you. Put that back in storage. So what I'm going to do, we're going to introduce who's going to be here today. First is Karen. Are you there, Karen? Karen Long.
I am.
Karen Long. Oh, my friend from NASA. That's Dr. It's Dr. Karen. I've got to start calling her doctor. Hey, Karen, where are you sitting today? Where are you at?
I'm located in Hampton, Virginia at NASA Langley Research Center, and it's wonderful to be with everyone today.
Oh, it is. And you're going to be answering some questions.
I hope so, yeah.
And you're involved with, what's DLN? What does that stand for? Doesn't like nuggets or something?
No. The DLN is NASA's Digital Learning Network. We connect students with NASA experts, and they talk about our research and our missions and bring it down to an educational level for everybody. So it's a great job.
Well, sweet. So Karen's going to be answering some questions, hopefully, and help us out. And then we have another NASA person, Liz Warren. Are you there, Liz?
I am. Hi.
Oh,
My name is
hello.
Liz, and I work.
Today.
Well, thank you.
So where do you
I work
Liz?
at NASA's Johnson Space Center,
Ooh.
and I work for the International Space Station. I'm a scientist with the International Space Station, and I am most interested in what happens to the human body in space.
Goodness sakes, that's amazing. So we just went from Langley Research Center to Houston. That's sweet. This Hangout's working, Bob. You did a good job. Well, we're going to go all the way across the ocean now to meet Ollie, Olympia. Let's see.
Hello.
There she is. So you're at the Royal Institution today.
I'm actually not. I'm actually working from home today.
Oh, okay
So
then.
you can see my my home mobile phone archive on the wall.
That's all right. You have a mobile phone collection. That's great.
Yeah.
It's a little odd. We won't bring that up today. But you.
But I work for the Royal Institution, which is a charity in the UK, which has been around for more than 200 years, and we bring science to people, help them to think more deeply about science for the benefit of society.
And you're the home of Michael Faraday.
We are, yes. We were literally his home for a very long number of years. He lived and worked in our building in Mayfair and made many important discoveries there relating to electricity, to discover new elements along with Humphrey Davy. And we've had a number of scientists working at the Royal Institution over the last 200 years.
Sweet. And if Kevin signs on with us, if he gets to where he's supposed to be, Kevin was the presenter of the lecture this year, the Christmas lecture, wasn't he?
That's right, yes. So since for about 185 years, we've been doing Christmas lectures, which are science lectures for young people every Christmas, and they've been televised for about 80 years. And this year's lectures, we were celebrating the first British astronaut who was staying on board the ISS, Tim Peake, and we're talking about how to survive in space. So I'm hoping Kevin will be in touch with us very soon.
Okay. He travels around. Where's he land? He went from London to somewhere for NASA.
He went from London to Chicago. Yeah, he's doing some filming and some recording for the BBC this week. So he's not on Eastern Standard Time now. He's on Central Time, I think. But
he might join us 2 hours after we get done.
Yeah.
After we get done. You know.
Let's hope not.
Forgetful doctor. We're moving all around the planet, Chicago and the eastern United States and Houston and across the ocean. And we're going to go to Waukegan, Illinois. And Sophia has a classroom there at the, well, I'll let them introduce themselves. Sophia, is your tribe ready?
Yes.
Oh, good. There's Sophia's class. There's the handsome man. Who are you, young man? What's your name?
Luis.
You're going around the planet. Can you hear me there, young man?
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't you introduce your group there?
My name is Luis, and our school has been around since the 50s, and it has 3 new additions since then because we are the largest elementary school in the district.
Wow. The largest in what? What did he say?
In the district.
Okay. I'm the largest wizard in the district. I'm trying to get him to smile. You're not going to smile. You're going to smile? Smile for you glad to be here? There's a smile. If that's a smile, that's a good smile. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. It's Clearview School, and we got a clear view of you today. So we'll get some questions for you in just a minute. And now we're going to move back to London. Oh, this has got the sweetest sounding name. The Space Studio. That's a school? Yeah. I want to go there. Is that the Space Studio?
Yeah. Yeah.
That man has a mustache. How are you doing?
I'm good. You?
I'm looking good. I've got a mustache too, but not as sweet as yours. I'm telling you.
Thanks. Anyway, hi. We're Space Studio West London from Feltham in the UK. Our school focuses on aerospace, aeronautics, and engineering. We do a lot of core project learning here.
So that means you're a bunch of smart kids, right?
Yeah.
So what's 7 times 8?
56.
Oh, good. Okay, then we'll keep them on. Let's flip them on. Let's check, make sure. All right. Well, that's great. You got some questions. So
Hey, Jake. Excuse me a second.
Look who's here.
We just connected with Kevin. So let's introduce Kevin.
Hi. Sorry, I'm late.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm in Chicago, so there's a big storm coming in.
Yeah, you got a little jet lag going, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Thanks for doing this. Yeah.
No sweat.
No sweat. Yeah. So thank you for doing this, and you're in Chicago. Okay, so Kevin, I don't know what to say about you other than he had me spellbound, and that's hard to do for the 3 nights of the Royal Lecture. That man kept. I just stood there with my jaw dropped. I stayed awake for the whole thing, so which is great, Kevin. You inspired me. So why don't you tell us about yourself?
So I'm very lucky. So I was this year's Royal Institution's Christmas lecturer. I am a doctor as well, and I work in London usually. But I worked on and off with NASA for about 10 years with Liz, actually, who's also with us today, with the Human Adaptation and Countermeasures Office. So I've had a lot of fun along the way, and human spaceflight is the thing that really made me choose to pursue science as a career in the first place.
Wow! So you're a medical doctor that works with NASA, and you'll be able to answer a lot of questions about what happens to people, their bodies when they go into space.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, that's good. Well, let's just get started. So let's go to Clearview School and get the first question. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Josue. My question is, what would happen to the body if exposed in space?
What would happen to the body, human body, if it was exposed to space? Okay, that's a good question. Who's got an answer for him?
Well, I can certainly chime in just a little bit, but before we get into what actually would happen to the human body if you were exposed to space, we have to know a couple of things about space. So, what is it that makes space space? The first thing that I think of is that there's really almost no air. We actually say space is a vacuum. There's practically no air molecules at all. And because of that, there's no pressure. So you and I, let's just assume we're both at about sea level. Not quite sure of the altitude of your school, but we're probably pretty close to sea level. And that means that there's a whole lot, miles and miles of atmosphere on top of us. What does that mean? Well, it means there's a lot of air on top of us, and it actually weighs us down. We don't notice it because we're so used to it, but there's actually pressure on our bodies created by all of those air molecules. And that pressure doesn't exist in space. The other thing to think of is that atmosphere around us on Earth helps provide some insulation, and it gives us, keeps us from being too cold. So all those air molecules around us actually give us warmth because they insulate us from space. So space, excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold today, is very, very cold. So it's about, in the shade without the sun, it's about minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And so for the Celsius crowd, that's what, about minus 150 or so degrees Celsius? So it can be very, very cold. There's no air to breathe, and there's no pressure on our bodies. And so if you were to be on board the International Space Station, for example, and open the door to space, well, it would be a bad day. You wouldn't instantly perish, but your body would not be able to survive very long. It's very cold. There's no pressure holding air around your body, and there's no air to breathe. So it really wouldn't be very good for you. In fact, you'd probably perish pretty quickly. What do you think, Kev? Maybe 30 seconds to a minute if you were holding your breath?
Yeah, it's certainly not more than a few seconds. I mean, people have been exposed to the high vacuum, or what would be like the high vacuum of space in the 1960s. There was an engineer who was testing spacesuits in a big vacuum chamber at NASA, and his umbilical, the hose that connects into the life support, became unplugged, and suddenly he was exposed to that very high vacuum. And because of the very, very low pressure in the chamber, the water in his body started to, the free water in his body started to boil. The last thing he said that he noticed before he became unconscious was watching a vapor come out of his mouth, water and condensed water, really, water condensation coming out of his mouth. So I guess, like steam vapor coming out of his mouth. But he survived to tell the tale, but he was pretty sick for a while.
He was a tough character.
Yeah, he was a lucky character.
Yeah, in the vacuum of space.
Yeah, don't go to space without a spacesuit. That's good medical advice.
Thank you, Doctor. Hey, Liz, this is just for you. And Liz, watch out. Can you guys picture this, Jacob? Look here. You were talking about the weight. I just had to bring this in off of my shelf because people ask, well, just how much pressure is on, what is 14.7 pounds per square inch?
Great.
So I went to the bowling alley and I said, do you have a 14.7 pound bowling ball? And they do. That's a little less than 15 pounds. And so I put a square inch on the end of it. See? You see that? So I guess this is how much pressure is on every square inch of our bodies. Isn't that sweet? That's what I do for a living, Liz. I come up with these silly things. But there it is.
That's fantastic.
That's 14.7 pounds per square inch of pressure. And I suppose, Kevin, that's the reason why when this leaves all of a sudden, we're used to it, we could be in trouble. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We need pressure to survive. We need that pressure to survive. We live under an ocean of air. We're just not aware of it.
Sweet. Let's move on. Let's skip over to London to the Space Studio. What a name.
How can a satellite take a steady, upright image of something if it's constantly spinning?
Sweet. How can a satellite take a? Yeah. How is everything's moving, constantly moving. So does anybody know at NASA? How would you do that?
So that's a great question. I'm sure there must be someone more qualified than me.
You're not a photographer, huh?
Well, that's fine. So I guess your question is, how do satellites take steady images of the Earth when they're moving and the Earth is moving at the same time? And part of the answer to that is that first of all, the Earth rotates, and although it's spinning pretty fast, so it spins at about 1,000 kilometers an hour from west to east, but because it's large and you're relatively far away from it when you're in orbit, you can track that movement. When you talk to people who've been up there trying to take photographs of the Earth from the space station, they say you do have to sort of track the movement of the Earth because you're moving relative to it and it's moving underneath you. Satellites can deal with that relatively easily, but then they do have to stabilize themselves, and usually the best way of stabilizing a platform in space is to use gyroscopes to stabilize that platform, and finally on top of that use a set of algorithms, so computer programs really to keep processing that image in real time to try and keep it steady. It's kind of, the answer really is you use a set of computer programs and a bit of mechanics to do for the computer what your body does for your eye. The world is not as steady as you think it is when you look out at it. Your body is all the time correcting the position of your eye and the position of your head relative to your eye to try and keep the image stable on the back of your eye and the retina. So essentially satellites do exactly the same thing, but in place of biology and muscles, they use computer programs and mechanical devices.
Hey, that's great. That's great. Hey, Bob, are you there, Bob? Bob?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Bob, that was such a good question. I was thinking about how you keep that paper bag on your head when you move about. It's a computer technology, correct?
Well, I tie it to my tie, so my tie keeps it tethered to my head.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah,
okay.
I would add to Kevin's comments that are right on. Now, the Hubble Space Telescope, I don't have a picture of it right now, but the Hubble Space Telescope does this all the time, and even more precision than some of the Earth satellites. For example, in 1995, it pointed at a black spot in the sky where the human eye could not see any stars, and for 10 days it took long exposures, and it's called the Hubble Deep Field, and it reveals thousands more galaxies than we could ever see with the human eye, which means that the universe is just way beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
And I would say that our Creator certainly is far greater than the limited perspective we put on him, but we can see way beyond with our technologies. So I'll just add that to the mix.
So yeah, well, thank you, Bob. So the Hubble had the computer capacity to stay focused in one spot. There was a computer programming scenario. Yeah, that's sweet. Well, I hope that answered your question. Obviously, none of us are NASA photographers, so I think we kind of bluffed our way through that quite well, don't you think? I think we did. I think we did pretty good on that one, yeah. Well, let's go back to Clearview and get question number 2. And Waukegan, Illinois.
Sorry, we're in the middle of an announcement. Okay, it's over now.
Okay, thank you. No problem.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ascendo. Why does the space suit cost so much money, and where does the money come from?
Why does the spacesuit cost so much? And where does that money come? Who paid for that spacesuit? That's a good question. Hey, NASA, can you answer that? I want to know. I'm a taxpayer.
Well, it actually is a great follow-on to the question we asked about what would happen to your body in space without a spacesuit. So I described that the environment that you would wear a spacesuit in space is pretty harsh, extremely cold, although it can also be extremely hot in the sun. There's no pressure, and there's vacuum, and there's no air to breathe. And so why does a spacesuit cost so much? Well, a spacesuit has to be able to keep you alive in this very harsh environment. And in fact, a spacesuit is almost like, well, it really is a small spacecraft specially designed to fit around your body. So it's really an entirely independent spacecraft. And very, very complicated. Your body, in order to keep it alive, what kinds of things do you need? You need air to breathe. You need something to remove the carbon dioxide that you breathe out. You know, we breathe in oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide, which is a waste product. We can't surround ourselves with that waste product. We have to take it away. Otherwise, it would make us not feel so good, make us sick, and actually over time would really impair our judgment and be very toxic. We have to bring something to keep us warm. We have to bring something to cool us off because our body is also constantly generating heat. So imagine wearing a rubber suit. Right now, if you put a rubber suit on yourself to maybe try and protect yourself from a vacuum, over time, actually pretty quickly, you would overheat. Your body is generating heat all the time. Wow. And if you don't take away that heat, you would overheat and again, not feel so good pretty quickly. And so then we need oxygen, we need to remove carbon dioxide, we have to keep ourselves warm, but we have to also shed heat that we're producing by our bodies. Those are just a couple of things that a spacesuit has to do. It also has to protect us from radiation and possible micrometeorites. So it's kind of a fun challenge to imagine designing a spacesuit. Now, I did a little research and found that a spacesuit costs maybe between 10 and 15 million US dollars. That's pretty expensive. But think of all the things that spacesuit has to do to keep astronauts safe. And, well, that's why spacesuits are so expensive. And who pays for that? Well, taxpayers of the countries.
That question, yeah.
So, yeah, the taxpayers for the countries that have astronauts going to space, they foot that bill. But if you think about it, that's really not a huge price to pay for having all of the learning opportunities that we are getting from being in space. It's making us a better people. It's increasing our knowledge and quenching our quest and our thirst for curiosity. So I think it's a pretty small price to pay. But I wouldn't want to buy one just for my personal self. Maybe you can get a used one for a little cheaper, but maybe not probably a good idea to use it.
Well, that's only, Liz, I calculate that's only 10 or 15 cents per American, so that's not bad. I don't mind. I'll put my dime in any time for a spacesuit.
Thank you, sir.
That is a lot of money, and I can see why having to do all those things. Keep me warm, keep me cool, keep me breathing, keep me protected, and it all has to fit tight so I can move around. That's quite amazing. I guess it's worth about 10 million. I'd get one. Yeah. If I had the money. Well, okay. Thank you for the answer. Let's go to back to West London to the Space Studio and answer the next question.
How often does Easter fall on the spring equinox?
How often does Easter fall on the spring equinox? That's kind of an astrogeological, geographical question, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know. Does anybody know? How often does Easter fall on the spring equinox?
No, it's an excellent question. Years ago when I studied astrophysics, I probably would have known the answer. I don't know the answer now. I do not know the answer to that question, I'm afraid.
Hey, give that man an apple. He stumped it. If you can stump Kevin Fong, you can do anything. No, you're going to have to find the answer and tell us, young man. Does he? Hey, London, does this guy? Who asked that question? What was that young man's name?
Sorry.
Do you answer hard questions? You ask hard questions like that all the time?
Occasionally.
Yeah, good. Yeah, he's a good guy. I like you. You're all right. We can't answer your questions. I don't, Bob. You're hiding under the desk, aren't you? I do not know that, and we'll have
No,
to find out.
I actually just put up a graphic. If you can
Course.
see that, thumbs up if you can see that. Everybody can see that, okay? Well, this shows what an we're talking about equal distribution of the sun's rays over one half of the planet, and you'll notice the March equinox coming up very soon, or the spring equinox. It's a March equinox. In universal coordinated time is on Sunday, March 20th, 2016. So I hope that illustrates what an equinox is, why it falls on, I think, Easter Sunday. Is traditionally, the Catholic Church, I think, started the, I may be mistaken, but started the practice of celebrating Easter on or around the spring equinox.
Well, Bob, I'm proud to know that. I don't think I remember what equinox meant. I knew the term, but I didn't know. That's neat. The wizard learned something today.
Well, you and I both have our personal planets above our necks that help us indicate when the equinox. Because when we have equal distribution of the sunlight on our heads, we know it's time to put a hat on, right?
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Better than I would have done. Okay. Well, good. Well, let's go back to Waukegan. We've got another question. Waukegan, Illinois. There it is.
Hi, my name is Steven. How do the astronauts get supplies when they visit the ISS?
How do they get supplies? That's a good NASA question.
Sure, and it's a very important question, and you've touched on a very important subject. So, what kinds of supplies do you think it would take to keep 6 people living and working aboard the International Space Station? You've probably already thought a little bit about this. It takes food, some water, clothing, supplies for all the things that they do, like experiments and maintenance of the space station, and some oxygen. Now we make some of our own oxygen and we recycle water, but it's not a perfectly closed system, so we need to bring a lot of things up to the space station on a pretty regular basis. Fortunately, we have several different types of space vehicles that launch on rockets and dock to the space station, either directly docking, or sometimes these vehicles get up pretty close to the space station, and then the space station's robotic arm reaches out, grabs the vehicle, and attaches it to the space station through a docking port. It's like a hatch that is only open when there's a space vehicle docked, and there's an airtight connection. But we have vehicles that are built by Russia, by our European partners, by our Japanese partners, and a couple of different ones that are made here in the United States. And they go up to the space station maybe every, well, it kind of depends on schedules, but maybe every few months. And the challenge, of course, is you can bring up a lot of stuff to the space station, but if you keep bringing new stuff, you're going to be full. Imagine your house if you constantly brought in new stuff but never got rid of anything old. Your house would fill up pretty quickly. So we also use those same vehicles to take out the trash, if you will. And some of those vehicles come all the way home and land on Earth in the ocean to return things that we need back, like scientific samples and things that we want to keep. And some of those vehicles, we actually let them burn up in the atmosphere. They disintegrate into just powder and dust. And that's how we get rid of trash on the space station. Does that answer your question enough?
Is that okay? It answered my question. It just made me think. They've got a lot of trash to get rid of.
They sure do.
That'd be quite a deal. So yeah, do you guys do they store ice cream on the space station?
So we do have freezers and a refrigeration device, but it's really not meant for food. But actually, we do have one cooler, one refrigerator that is meant for keeping cool drinks, and we have occasionally got a treat of having some ice cream brought up to the space station, but it didn't last very long because the astronauts ate it.
Ate it quick. I was wondering if they just set things outside to keep them cold. Yeah. They don't do that, I guess.
No.
Okay. Well, good question. That was a good question. Let's go back to London. I think we can get another question out of London. Maybe we can answer it better this one anyway. Back to the state. Yeah, here we are.
What exactly is the Van Allen radiation belt, and is it important to life?
What's the Van Allen radiation belt? Okay. They're not going to go. Yeah. They're looking that up in the dictionary as we speak right now. They're looking up the Van Allen radiation belt.
I think, if memory serves, the Van Allen radiation belts are belts of trapped radiation that are trapped close to the Earth, that actually don't threaten the astronauts who are in low Earth orbit on the space station, but are a consideration for astronauts who would go beyond the Earth to the Moon and onto Mars. They'd be a big deal if you had to hang around in the radiation belts themselves, sitting in that layer of trapped radiation for any period of time. But effectively, if you're going to the Moon or you're going to Mars, you pass through it pretty rapidly, and it's not something that limits our ability to explore space. There are more dangerous sources of radiation for us out there than the Van Allen radiation belts. There is the radiation that comes from the sun itself, that rains in from the sun at all times, and that's particularly bad when there's a solar storm or a solar flare, when the sun spits very high energy radiation at us, and the only thing that protects us from that on Earth is the thick blanket of atmosphere around the Earth and the Earth's magnetic field. When you're outside both of those things and on your way to the Moon or Mars, you're very vulnerable to those very high fluxes of radiation, those very, very high intensity storms of radiation. And then the other place the radiation comes from is from outside our solar system, the so-called extragalactic radiation. That extragalactic just means from outside our solar system and galaxy. And that's really radiation that arises from high energy events and objects occurring elsewhere in the universe, that is constantly flowing through our solar system. And all of these things are a problem, in terms of protecting human life, for the future human exploration of space. It's one of our biggest problems. So far, in our reasonably limited understanding of what the radiation environment is going to be like for people who are engaged in missions to Mars, we think that we can just about do it. We can just about put crews up there and back and protect them from the radiation that they would experience, as long as there isn't a very severe solar storm, solar flare. We're still having trouble knowing how to best protect crews from very, very big solar flares. One of the ways of doing that is to be able to predict the solar flare before it comes, and then build an area inside your spaceship that is more shielded than the other areas, that behaves like a bit of a bomb shelter. So someone who's very good at predicting space weather predicts that you're about to have a solar flare, and then all of your crew can go and hide in their bomb shelter, as it were, aboard their spaceship, and that's what would protect you. So, the Van Allen radiation belts are areas of trapped radiation that are important to consider, but they're not as important as other sources of radiation.
Okay, thank you, young man. Well, I guess I'd follow-up question would be, if that belt wasn't there, would people living on the planet have more problems with radiation if the belts weren't there? Is it important to us to stay healthy? Are the belts keeping us healthier than if they weren't there?
Well, I mean, I don't think that the radiation belts themselves keep us healthy, but the ability of the magnetic field around the Earth to trap radiation, I guess, is what keeps us healthy. Because some radiation comes in the form of waves, and it's really the thick atmosphere that stops that stuff. But there's some radiation that are like highly charged particles, so they're kind of like sort of, atomic bullets that are being fired at us by the sun. That's the best way to think of them. And they've got a bit of charge on them, and so it means that they can be affected by magnetic fields and So the belts of radiation really are a consequence of the ability of that defense to stop that high energy radiation getting to us.
Thank you, Kevin. That was great. You got the point answer. Let's go back to one last question in Waukegan at the Clearview School. I think we've got one more question.
Hi, my name is Eileen, and this is my question. How do astronauts prepare for the visit to the ISS?
So how do they prepare for their visit? What do they have to do to get ready? Let's see if.
Well, that's a fun question. I know I would sure like to go visit the International Space Station. I'm guessing Dr. Fong would also like to visit the International Space Station. Would you like to visit the International Space Station? Yeah, I think a lot of people would like to go. So let's imagine for a moment that we're getting ready to go to the space station together. Some of the things that we would need to do is learn a lot about how the space station works and how the rocket works that's going to get us there, and how the rocket works that's going to get us home, because we want to be able to do all those things safely. And in case something goes wrong, we want to know how to react and keep ourselves alive. So a lot of studying, and a lot of training and practicing for everyday things and emergency scenarios too. So on the space station, you have to learn everything from how to prepare your food, how to use the small food rehydrator and food warmer. That's just a basic thing. You even have to be trained how to use the loo or the toilet. You have to learn how to take care of the space station. It's a machine, but it requires a lot of care and maintenance, kind of like your car, only even more care and maintenance. Not so much how to change the oil and fill the gas tank, but maybe a little bit of those things. Because when we go to the space station, it's just going to be us, and there's no repair team that can be sent up to help us. We have to be able to keep the space station running on our own and keep ourselves healthy. So there's a lot to learn. And it takes a couple of years, actually, of training to be ready to go to the space station. So in fact, do you know how long people stay on the space station? Do you know about that? Okay, so if we're going to get ready to go to the space station, we're going to have to be ready to be away from home for about 6 months. Now, there are people that are staying on the space station for a whole year. In fact, Scott Kelly, a NASA astronaut, and a Russian cosmonaut, Mikhail Kornienko, they're on the space station right now. They've been in space for almost an entire year. They're going to come home in just, 7 days, actually. On March 1st, they're going to land in their spaceship in Kazakhstan, the Russian, basically planes, the steppe. They're going to have to, we usually keep about 6 people on the space station. So after 3 people come home, shortly after, 3 new people are going to go to the space station. And they have been training for a long, long time, years in fact. So there's all kinds of preparation that has to go into a space mission. They also have to learn how to do a spacewalk, how to repair something that might break outside the space station, how to put on a spacesuit, because there's no one there to really help you put on your spacesuit except for the other astronauts. So it's a lot to learn, but I think it's probably a lot of fun to learn all of those things. And many of those things are super, super important to keeping the astronauts alive and well. So they're interested in learning those things for sure. They have to learn a lot of math and a lot of physics and a lot of science, and even some repair tasks. They have to be good at fixing things. So, I don't know, Kevin, can you chime in with anything else that you might need to learn to go to the space station?
No, well, except for the preparation is really twofold. There's general training, so there's general training that all astronauts do, whatever happens to them in their life as an astronaut, and then there's mission-specific training, and that's specific to whatever task you'll be doing up there. So there's usually a mission, there is a mission involved, and there's something that you're going up there to do. you don't go up to the space station just to hang around and float around and look good on camera. So they have jobs to do, and they train specifically for those jobs. And the most interesting thing for me about the way you prepare for that is the medical stuff. So, you know, contrary to popular belief, there is no doctor up there, or at least there isn't always a doctor up there. It's only a few times that some of my friends who are doctors, who are in the astronaut corps, fly in space. Most of the time there's no doctor, there's not even a paramedic. So they do have to do some medical training because they're on their own, and they're a long way from home, and they do need to be able to do some basic medical procedures, you know, more than just a bit of first aid. You know, they need to be able to stand and fight for long enough to make a difference or to get them home, and that involves quite a few hours hanging around at hospitals and with ambulance crews, learning how to stitch people up and do, you know, minor surgery and do a bit of medical care. So so they learn a little bit of medicine while they're there in their preparation as well.
Hey Liz, this is Bob. Can you tell us something about survival training? I didn't realize that this was an aspect until I talked to one of the astronauts, and apparently they, I won't say have a good time, but they've all enjoyed it to a certain extent. But it's pretty rugged, isn't it?
Hey, Bob. Yeah, I see the picture that you're showing there. Boy, I forgot about that. There's a whole challenge of learning how to work in a team. So when you go to the space station, you're with 5 other people. They'll definitely be from different countries. And you don't actually have a tremendous amount of time to work with them before you end up being in space with them. So you have to learn how to work really well as a team and depend on your teammates for important things like keeping you alive. So you have to be a good member of a team. You have to learn how to be a team member and how to be a leader and how to take care of each other. And these 5 other people that we're going to be in space together with are going to be like a second family. And among the things that we'll learn together is if our spaceship lands somewhere far away in like an emergency situation from where we're supposed to land, we're going to have to learn perhaps how to get ourselves out of the spacecraft without any help, how to potentially build some shelter, and what if we land in the ocean by accident? We're going to have to learn how to deploy a raft and get ourselves secure and safe until a rescue ship can come get us. So survival training has many purposes, mostly to make sure we all have the skills to keep ourselves alive in case we land off course, but also there's an aspect of learning how to work together. And when you're in school, you're learning those things too, how to work together in a team with a group that maybe you work on a project together. These are skills that are important for the rest of your life, because very rarely when we are, you know, working or in school are you all by yourself. You're always surrounded by your classmates and by people that you're going to be working with in the future. And so learning how to be a good member of society is a really good, that's another thing that you have to learn how to do.
Sweet. I didn't know that just made me tired listening to all the things you have to do to go to space. You know, I was dreaming about going, Liz, and I go, man.
Did you change your mind?
Huh? Yeah, that would just be a lot of work, wouldn't it?
You know what? It's worth it. Imagine looking out the window at planet Earth and contributing to increasing all of mankind's knowledge and science. Oh, I think it's worth it. It's worth it.
Well, I see the smile. I see a twinkle in your eye, the same twinkle I see in Kevin's eye when he's talking about all this stuff. So it must just be a marvelous thing. Well, we've got another question. I think we're going to go back to the space studio. I read this question. I think I heard this. Let's go ahead.
From the reference point of someone looking down on the Earth from above the North Pole, what direction would they see that the Earth is spinning?
So that's a good question. So, as I'm sure you know, the space station, and indeed none of our human spacecraft get up above the pole. They orbit at lower latitudes than that. But if you were able to see the Earth from the North Pole, it would appear to be spinning from west to east, so in a counterclockwise direction. It doesn't spin very fast. It spins quite slowly. I think it's about 12 degrees an hour, so you wouldn't be there watching it go around like a spinning top. You'd just be there watching it creep around very, very slowly. But we don't put spacecraft, human spacecraft, up above the pole. It actually takes an awful lot of energy to get vehicles up to that position, and so they orbit at much lower latitudes. Space station's about 51 degrees, Liz. That's about there, somewhere like that. So if you imagine that there was the equator of the Earth, space station sort of orbits at that sort of angle, going around.
Well, thank you. I was trying this out here in the studio myself. I positioned myself above the North Pole here.
It's a very inefficient maneuver, Bob.
Yeah, we got it. It's going counterclockwise, just like the man said. Of course, to stay. Well, I had to check it out because yeah, that's right. Okay. Wizards have to check these things out. But you're right. It takes a lot of energy. Because what did I hear you say on the lecture, that they try to launch in the direction of the spin of the Earth to have that added speed, velocity when they take off? Yeah,
that's something that a lot of people don't appreciate. That it's everything that you can do just to deliver your payloads into space. Using the biggest, most dangerous rockets, releasing huge amounts of energy. So you borrow energy from wherever you can get it, and you can get some from the rotational velocity of the Earth, the rotational energy of the Earth as it rotates from the west towards the east. So if you're sensible, you only ever try and launch rockets out towards the east, because then you need to use less power, less fuel to get there. And so that's why for the Americans the launch site is Cape Canaveral. So it launches east and the rockets go out over the ocean. For the Russians, it's Baikonur. And for both countries, those are parts of the country that have not that much to worry about towards the east of the site, and are relatively close to the equator. I say relatively. Baikonur is about as south as they can find as an appropriate launch site in Russia, and Cape Canaveral is about as south as you can go before you start getting to the Florida Keys and spoiling people's holiday destinations.
So I had never considered that. So what Kevin said is, it depending on where you are on the planet Earth when you launch into space, takes more or less energy to get up, and you can borrow some from the planet Earth to help you get up.
And Earth is turning faster at the equator, or at least the surface of the Earth is turning faster at the equator than it is at the poles. So ideally what you want to do is to launch off the equator, and indeed European Space Agency has a launch site in French Guiana, which is very close to the equator. That's the ideal place, because you need less energy, less rocket fuel, less powerful engines to get yourself into an orbit.
So I guess it would be fair to say I'm in space right now. I'm sitting right here going 1,000 miles an hour. That's not too bad. Well, that's kind of sad actually, but at least I tried. Okay, and we have one more question from the space studio, I think. There he is.
Hi. Does the Earth's magnetic poles shift?
Do the Earth's magnetic poles shift? I've heard something about this.
Yeah, so that's kind of for a geologist, really, but yes, they do indeed shift, and they creep slowly over time. So magnetic north, and indeed so North Pole and the South Pole, the magnetic North Pole and the South Pole are constantly creeping round. And I think every so often, and when I say every so often, I'm talking billions of years apart. No, not billions. I think hundreds of million years apart. They do invert every now and again. And I seem to remember that has some pretty catastrophic consequences. But it's one of those things you don't really need to worry about, because it's not going to happen anytime soon. But yes, they do wander around, and they are on the move at the moment. But they're not in any danger of inverting right now.
Well, that's good.
There's those otherwise.
It's hard enough for me to walk around as it is now. If things start shifting, it's going to be rough. Going to be rough. And those are some good questions from London, and some good questions from Waukegan, Illinois, at the Clearview School. in the space studio. I'm going to have to visit the space studio. That just sounds very cool. And there's such a good-looking group of young people there, especially the kid with the mustache. The mustache kid, he was great. Well, I tell you what, I've got a couple of demonstrations to do right here at Faraday Studio. And thank you, Kevin. Those were good answers. You're a good man. If you recall in the lecture, Kevin, when Andy put a marshmallow in the bell jar, do you remember that? And evacuated. I decided I've got to do better than Andy. That was my goal, is to do something better than Andy, which is hard to do. There's a Royal Institution. It's so cool. So I've got a bell jar, just as Andy had. Oh, that thing's heavy. And I've got a vacuum pump. I'm sure at the space studio they've done something like this all the time, but here's a vacuum pump right here, and it's connected to a plate with a valve on it. And here's a hole right there under the screen. You see a hole? I'm going to turn on the vacuum pump, and it will evacuate some air through this tube. I'm going to set this block of wood. Yeah, pretty cool.
And so what you're saying is this is kind of trying to simulate.
Yeah, simulate space. Yeah, we're going to simulate. It's very crude, and we saw that on the video when they did it with the marshmallow. So we decided to substitute my little friend Caitlin here for my marshmallow. Here's Caitlin. How you doing? And there's got a hollow head. And I thought I better have some matter inside here, some brain matter, Kevin. I'm gonna fill her with shaving cream. Yeah.
Your brain is not actually made of shaving cream, Bob.
My brain is.
More about that. Well, my brain isn't made of shaving cream.
So I'll just put her right here on the stick. I hope that doesn't push it all out. That was smart. Okay, we wipe that off. I got shaving cream on her face here, so let me find a rag. Here we go. Sorry, Caitlin, I spilled shaving cream on your face. So there we go. That wasn't supposed to happen. So I'm going to put Caitlin here, and let's just see what happens to Caitlin when she's in a vacuum. That's good. You got a good view of Caitlin? Okay, we'll rotate this around a little bit there. There we go. Good view. So I'll turn on the switch as Caitlin enters outer space for the first time. Move over there, Blake. Anything happen, Caitlin? I guess I'm leaking some air somewhere. I must have a leak in my spacesuit, Kevin. About that, we'll turn that off. We'll come back to that, Kevin. You can imagine what's supposed to happen, right, Kevin?
Well, yes. Although it's already an image that's enough to give you nightmares for weeks.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. That was a terrible thing to do. Well, they're going to work on that while I do another activity that kids can do at the two schools. So I thought, when you mentioned they're going to work on trying to find, we have a leak somewhere. And what's supposed to happen is, what was supposed to happen is the shaving cream was going to shoot out of her eyes. And it was terrible. It was a terrible thing. Maybe it's a good thing it didn't work. Give somebody some nightmares or something. Anyway, it's an activity that the two school groups can do to the stuff they find around the school. I found some newsprint, some newspaper, right here. This was this morning's newspaper, and this will demonstrate how living on living in the close to the sun as we do, we're pelted with radiation all the time. The newspaper is made out of cellulose, and there's a chemical in the cellulose called lignin that is very sensitive to light. And so I'm going to take this piece of newsprint and just spread it out, and you can do this outside. And I'm going to take some cling wrap. If I can tear it off here, I'll just leave it in the box. There we go. Okay, I'm going to put some cling wrap on top of the newspaper, and you can do this at the school. Go outside. Now, normally, when we want to protect ourselves from getting a sunburn or some solar radiation, we'll take some suntan lotion. And I bought I went to the store and I bought 3 different types. It's got a 12, a 30, and a 50. I wonder what that means, 12, 30, and 50, SPF, 50. I wonder if the 50 SPS is more protective than the 12. So I'm going to take a little bit of this shaving, it's not shaving, the suntan lotion, put it on my finger, and I think I will just write a message, like I'll spell my name or something like that, and I'll put it on there very thin. You probably do a better job than I'm doing. I'm going to put some suntan lotion. I'm going to get it very thin. I got it a little thick there. And maybe I'll put a little star up here, like that, like that. You'll do a better job than I'm doing. And I might try, another batch over here. I might try some 30 and put a very thin layer. I'm getting this way too thick. I need to get it thinner. Put a very thin layer of the 30 right there, like that, on the cling wrap. And I can make a pattern, and I might want to try a pair of sunglasses. Might just want to lay those on the newspaper, or maybe a piece of glass or a piece of plastic, things that I want to test to see if they filter radiation. And outside, I just expose this to the sun and leave it out there for an hour or so. And I want you to think, what do you think might happen? What would you expect to happen if you left the newspaper outside for a couple of hours in direct sunlight? And if you've ever left your newspaper laying out in the front yard when it's delivered to your house or on the front porch, and you bring it in and it's yellowed because the sunlight has caused some of that lignin to start to decompose, and it starts to turn, it's the carbon in the lignin that we start to see, that brown color. When you peel this up, you might be able to see how the suntan lotion has protected the paper from being tanned or burned. And maybe there's an experiment you can do to see which suntan lotions work best, how thick it needs to be on your skin to be effective. You can do a few experiments just using a piece of newspaper, some cling film, and some suntan lotion, and maybe other objects you want to see if they do filter out the UV radiation. So there's an activity you can do at school. Well, Bob, I think we about ran out of time. As we close out, does any of our team have a question or a statement they want to make before we close?
Yeah, this is Bob. I just wanted to give Karen a chance to promo the DLN, unless there are some other questions.
Hi, thanks, Bob. NASA's Digital Learning Network provides many opportunities, just like we've experienced today through this Google Hangout, where we are connecting NASA and space experts with students all over the world. We provide free interactive programming with various modules that we offer consistently all the time, but also on our website we advertise special events just much like this. And below my name, right down there, you see our website, www.nasa.gov/DLN. I would encourage you to go to that website, check out our variety of different special events, as well as our 10 interactive programs, and we hope to see your teachers and your students connected to the Digital Learning Network soon. Thanks.
Came back on. Well, let's say thanks to everybody. Hey, Ollie, are you still there? In London?
I am. Thank you very much. Thank you so much to Clearview School and to Space Studio West London. It was very amazing to have you joining us. Thank you.
And thanks I wasn't able to defeat Andy in the competition. Doggone it, I'm going to keep trying.
It also works really well if you put some red food colouring in with that shaving foam. It really gives it a nice bloody tinge. It's good. I recommend that.
So you've done this before?
I'm afraid so, yeah.
No. I thought I had them. They already beat me to it. All right. And who else we want to invite? Karen, who else is out there? Karen? No, I said it's all Karen. Liz. Are you there, Liz? There she is. I'll say goodbye to Liz. I think she's muted.
I'm good now. Thanks very much for your questions and your interest, and I hope that you stay curious and keep asking those questions.
Well, and thank you. I learned some stuff from you today, Liz. Thank you very much. Even at my age, I learned stuff from Liz. Thank you, Liz. And Kevin, thank you for working through your jet lag and giving us all the information. We sure do appreciate it.
It's my great pleasure. It's great to be here. I'm in Chicago as some massive storm front's about to come in, so this might be the last time anyone hears from me. I'm going to try and run to the airport now after
Well,
this.
if you can't survive, nobody can. That's great, man. Well, maybe
Yeah.
we'll see you tomorrow. We've got one more event tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow I'll be in Washington, D.C. Actually, I'm talking to Charlie Bolden tomorrow morning, all things being equal. So he's the guy who runs NASA, so that should be fun.
That'd be good, too. All right, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Good looking man. I like your hair. You did good.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
Okay, he's a good man. And, hey, thank you. Is Waukegan still there?
Yes, we're still here. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Oh, good. They got a good-looking class there. They're handsome and beautiful. Thank you so much, Sophia. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And tune in tomorrow. Watch tomorrow. We'll be doing it again tomorrow if you want to watch on YouTube. Okay?
Okay.
All right, thanks. Hopefully we'll have many more of these Hangouts, and we'll discuss lots of things. So we'll stay in touch. Okay. Now let's go back to London. To the school with a handsome mustachioed young man. There we go. Thank you very much. You're a good-looking group of people, and smart too. Thank you for participating today, and it was wonderful to have you. If I'm ever from London, I'm going to come back and try to blow up this head better. I'm sorry, I'm so embarrassed. It just didn't work. It was supposed to shoot out her eyes, and it didn't do it. So I tell you what, Bob, that's the way we'll close out today. We'll turn on the vacuum pump. We'll say goodbye and turn on the pump and see if we can get her to do her thing. You ready to go, Bob? Say goodbye.
You're just working out all sorts of issues with that thing. Okay.
You think so? Okay. Psychology. Okay, we'll see everybody. Thanks. And you can watch on YouTube tomorrow too. We'll do another one in the morning. So see you later. Bye.